Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to try to speak as quickly as I possibly can. I thought I had 30 minutes to speak. I'm also going to try to keep my trousers up as well because I just bought these the other day and they're a bit big, and then they put this thing on the back and they're going to fall down. Anyway, it'll make the show more exciting. It was interesting being proposed this topic, just sort of thinking about sort of making trends and breaking trends, because I sort of just get on with my day and do what I always do and always have done. But I started to ponder the thought, and I was also forced by the lovely organizers of this event to really think about not just sort of, how does a trend evolve, but where is sort of the genesis for the idea. And I thought about, in many ways, the things that I've done over my career, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time on that. But always in the moment when I've had an idea, I thought I've sort of been completely sort of moving with the times. But it's only with hindsight that I've managed to realize that perhaps I was going completely in the opposite direction. But I guess that sort of speaks to the fact that, yeah, maybe I'm just becoming old and grumpy, or maybe I was a little bit old before my time. You can decide later, and you can ask questions. Just by way of background, I'm Canadian. I was born in a place called Winnipeg, which is in the center of Canada. I wanted to become an architect. Well, I wanted to become two things. I was thinking about becoming an architect, and then I also wanted to be a fighter pilot as well. And oddly, I just ended up becoming a journalist, but I still happen to fly around a lot, and I still get to make things. I just don't really get to build things as an architect does. I decided to go to journalism school. One of the great secrets that you probably don't realize when you watch any American news network, when you watch people who are out there in the field delivering journalism in the English language, all of the people, all the really, really good people on CNN, all the good people on the BBC, they're not American, they're all Canadian. And that's because Canadians have a much nicer accent than Americans do, and the world can understand us. So with that, I went to journalism school in Toronto, and I realized very quickly, you can either write or you can't. I don't care what anyone says, they can't teach you how to write. So I lasted about 2 months in journalism school. I stayed for about 2 years. And I decided to go off to the UK and just get experience firsthand. Journalism, I think, is very much a trade, and you just have to get out there and do it in the same way that you have to go out and learn how to lay bricks, or you have to go and learn how to work with wood. Journalism is really a trade and a craft in that sense. So there was no better place to go than to leave Canada was also a good thing. Canada's a perfectly delightful place, but I would not. I mean, I know lots of Koreans go to study in Canada, but you should come back to Korea as quickly as you possibly can because it's dreadfully boring. And then I went to Afghanistan, and this is where our story starts today, because I think for a very long time I knew that, of course, I wanted to be a journalist, and I never saw myself as really an entrepreneur, as someone who was going to be managing people. And in 1994, I took an assignment to go to Afghanistan to cover the activities of the medical aid organization, Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders. And after being in Kabul for about 3 days, I had the misfortune of being in an ambush. Our car came under attack, and I was shot twice, and this was a big turning point in my life. And it was really at that point that I realized that as much as I wanted to do journalism, and I spent a long time in hospital, I realized that I wanted to do things my way. I wanted to do them on my own terms. And that takes us to, well, at least the launch of Wallpaper, and we'll go into the other points here. But it takes us to the year 1996, which is really the big turning point year for me. It was the year that I launched Wallpaper magazine. And these are just sort of a variety of events that were happening then. Of course, we had the World Cup, co-hosted by South Korea and Japan. We had the Israeli invasion of Lebanon. The Summer Olympics were held in Atlanta that year. We had Mr. Clinton about to come into office. Generally, 1996 was actually quite a harmonious time. It was a world that wasn't really at war. The economy was in a reasonably decent shape in most markets. It was an era of McMansions and sort of, grand expansion. And at the time, I felt that what was really interesting was that we saw everyone sort of fleeing to the suburbs. People wanted to, just have a bigger house outside of New York, and they wanted to have a bigger house outside of London. But to me at that time, I thought the city was the most interesting place to live. So why was everyone actually moving out into suburbia when, in fact, who wants to sit in a car all day? You want to be able to walk to stores. You want to be able to let your kids walk to school. You don't want to sort of be confined within 2 doors or 4 doors of a vehicle all day. And suddenly, the city just seemed like the most interesting place to be. And I guess as a result of that, this was what I thought of. I'd never edited a magazine, I'd never managed people, but I went out and found some money through a small business loan. I went and got an SME loan from a British bank, and I thought that there was really room to do a magazine which looked at architecture, interiors, entertaining, travel, and it was interesting because I sort of distilled all of this as the stuff that surrounds you. That sort of became, really the tagline for the magazine. And you can do the best business plans in the world, which I thought I had done, but I'd never done a business plan before. And I realized in quite a very short span of time, a luxury magazine relies on advertising in Italy. And no one tells you when you do one of these plans. Of course, you think that some people will pay you in 30 days, and some people will pay you in 60 days. No one tells you that Italian luxury goods companies pay you in 180 days. So as quickly as I started the project, I also ran out of money very, very fast. And I guess within about a year's time, I was somewhat forced. I did have a choice of who I wanted to sell to. But I sold the magazine to Time Warner, and I ran it for them for a little over 5 years. And it was during that period that I thought, well, we always talk about sort of church and state, that church is the editorial side of the magazine. It's the pretty pictures, it's the lovely words. And the state, of course, is the advertising. It's the ugly, gritty, aggressive commercial world. And the two shouldn't really talk. They should be at odds with each other. Well, I thought slightly differently. I thought not only should these two worlds meet and engage and, of course, build a stronger brand, I also thought there was an opportunity to be able to use the commercial side to the photographers, the way we saw the world, to also develop this company, Wink Creative. And so we were doing the magazine, and then we were having companies come to us and say, well, can you help us with our entire brand? So in 2001, for example, Swiss Air went bankrupt, and we were given a project to overhaul the airline and completely start from scratch all over again, and do the interiors for the brand, and I mean literally 25,000 applications. And it was interesting because, again, when you sort of think about being a counterweight and sort of I guess breaking a trend, a journalist is not supposed to go off and do a branding agency. It's almost verboten, and I got in a lot of trouble from the media. Why was this journalist suddenly going out and also starting a branding business? But to me, part of what fuels me every day is going out and traveling and seeing the world. And I'm just showing you some examples of some of the projects that we've done. And what's interesting is now within a branding environment, having this editorial tone of voice, this fact that we are constantly out there behaving like journalists, which means having our eyes open, being accurate, and I think constantly out on the road and engaging with people has given us really a unique voice. This is an airline project that we've done in Canada called Porter, which is I guess a little bit like Jeju Air, maybe, same type of concept, but flying much more sort of high-frequency routes. And so this company started as 5 or 6 people off the side of wallpaper, it became so big that eventually I went and bought the entire company back. And so it's a lot of renovation of magazines. So when you sort of see the work, it kind of makes sense that, well, yeah, maybe traditionally this would have been sort of, against the grain, against the trend of where the industry was going. But we were very fortunate to really use the power of our skill set as journalists, and of course because we're commissioning photographers, we're commissioning illustrators all the time, and just being able to develop all of the things that you see here. This is a new concept that we're currently working on for Twinings, the tea company, which will be a series of tea shops. If we fast forward a decade, 2006, this is what was going on in the world. We had, of course, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad saying that he'd been able to enrich enough uranium to build a bomb. We had another war in Lebanon. We had North Korea conducting its first ever nuclear test. We had your Ban Ki-moon stepping up to the plate at the United Nations. Basically, we were in a more turbulent world. We were a world at war on multiple fronts. And I think my world had sort of changed as well. I thought that I had a tour and time doing interiors, entertaining, and travel. But suddenly I just felt that we were I felt that we were not just in a more serious place, but I wasn't getting the information that I wanted. And I say that by sort of going out to the newsstand, being at airports, traveling around the world, and just realizing there wasn't a magazine that was covering all of the things that interest me. Political affairs on one side, and at the far end, design and travel, and really merging it into one package. So I sort of looked at the sort of gap in the market. People were traveling, certainly more than ever before, and I think that we just had all of these people who were running media companies at that point. And I was sort of looking at the market saying, well, the trend was, let's save money on magazines. Let's try to save money on print. Magazines were becoming more disposable. People were saying, well, we should treat print media the same way as digital. You just move on very quickly. And to me, that struck me as, well, completely wrong. What I thought needed to happen was that magazines needed to become much more tactile. They should be something that's collectible. They should be something that feels like a luxury brand. In the same way that you focus so much on, what eyewear are you going to wear, what shoes are you going to wear today, what bag are you going to carry. Well, also your media says a lot about you as well. And I'm not sure about you, but whenever I sort of go into an airport lounge, if I have an option of sort of, sitting beside someone who's reading a really bad newspaper, or someone who's reading a really interesting newspaper, chances are I'll probably go and sit closer to the person who's consuming the more interesting media, just because I feel that there might be some type of connection, whether it's from a business point of view, a social point of view with that individual. So it's really treating a media brand not just as an information vehicle, but something that says something about you as a consumer. Of course, everyone said I was completely wrong, and the world was going completely digital, and why on earth would you want to spend a lot of money cutting down trees, making paper, and buying ink? And anyway, I didn't listen, and what's interesting is we just had our 4th anniversary, and Monocle as a magazine has just continued to grow. In under 4 years has become profitable. In under 4 years has really proven that there is a global appetite for print. And we do one edition for the entire world. So it doesn't matter where you live. You can live in Busan, you can live in Sydney, you can live in Vancouver. It's the same edition that we deliver for the entire world. Because I think in an era, again, when everyone wants to localize media, they want to have local pages because supposedly people only want to know what's going on in their own neighborhood. Well, I would sort of think most people sort of know what the opportunities are in their neighborhood. What they don't know is what's the opportunity in Auckland, or what is the opportunity in Sacramento. And that's what we're driving people to, every single issue. And that's by looking at political affairs. It's looking at it, through business. It's looking at it through culture and media. Also design, and design being industrial design, and it's architecture, and it's also fashion. It's our edits pages in our magazine, which is really sort of the consumer side, the really indulgent side of the magazine, and then our expo section, which is always sort of a grand reportage from somewhere around the world. Additionally, from time to time, we have a manga series within our pages. And then in the summertime, I was so sick of hearing about the iPad, pad this, pad that, and I was thinking about, we do 10 magazines a year. And what was interesting is I thought, you know, as great as iPads are, and as interesting as they are, they're not fantastic in the sunshine. And it's actually not something you want to take on holiday with you, leave on your sun lounger, and then go swimming, because chances are no one's going to take your $5 copy of Time magazine or your $22 copy of Monocle, but they'll probably steal your $1,000 iPad. It won't be there when you get out of the water. So we came up with the idea of doing a newspaper in the summer. We did Mediterraneo, which came out at the end of July, and then we just did Alpino for Christmas. So again, in an era when who wants to do newspapers anymore? Newspapers are in decline. Through the support of our readers and our advertisers, we absolutely established that there was a market, because people do want to see words on a printed page, particularly in the sunlight, when there's no glare off the screen. And also iPads don't cooperate very well with sun cream and sweat and salt water, etc. So it's bad news for our friends at Apple, it's bad news for our friends at Samsung, but it's good news for people who grow trees in Finland. Additionally, we've done city surveys. We've done one on Seoul, which we did in association with Hyundai, regional surveys. We've also started launching country surveys, travel surveys as well. We do a series of supplements. So it's always about sort of, you know, adding more depth and value at every single turn. The other thing we do is that we don't give anything away for free. So if you want to read something online from our site, you'll get the first 3 lines, but after that you'll have to subscribe. And it's been very much this point of not giving away our brand for free that has driven and allowed us to become a profitable brand. So what you won't find is, you won't find that we're sort of talking a lot about the power of social media. You won't see us, any of our correspondents out there tweeting. What we believe is that our people have to be out there telling great stories which are delivered on page. And these are films which are not going to work. But and I think sort of more importantly, what we do every week is a program on Sunday mornings called, this is just the page that we're doing for it. If you go to our site, or you can listen to it on iTunes, is we've sort of really found there's extraordinary power through audio. So we do a Sunday morning podcast, really in the tradition of sort of NPR, the BBC, a great morning discussion program, which now does somewhere in the area of 200,000 downloads per week. So it's become a very sort of strong, self-contained brand in its own right within the lineup of things that we do. And additionally, on one side, a lot of people sort of talk about, well, why aren't you in social media? Why aren't you tweeting all the time? Our view is it's actually sort of much more interesting to be doing this. So we've actually opened up retail in London, Los Angeles, Tokyo, Hong Kong, New York, and do sort of a variety of our own exclusive products and collaborations. And this is just some examples of some of the things. I have about 1 minute to go before we stop. I just wanted to talk about 5 things very quickly that I sort of see on the horizon. One is, I think, the rise of a post-luxury society. As we look over the horizon right now, Japan, a very good example, still the world's #1 luxury economy. But I think it'll be interesting to see where Japan ends up, certainly after what's happened recently. But you've already seen a market which is fatigued of luxury. The Japanese bought it, they consumed it, they ate it. And I think they're now tired of it. And it's definitely sort of points in a direction for where the rest of the world could go. I definitely think that we're seeing, a great coming together. More communities. I think engaging a desire for a different type of living. I have a big question about who's going to speak for Asia. Are we going to see the rise of a strong Asian voice in terms of news? We've seen it surprisingly happen in the Middle East with Al Jazeera. When will it happen? Is it an opportunity for Korea? I think that audio is really the most luxurious form of media. And I think also a singular offer. I think great brands of the future, it's not about 1,000 choices, it's about a singular vision. It's about having one choice and it's about having focus. I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.